Have you ever wondered why some countries have thriving free market economies while others control nearly everything? Why is the US economy so different from China's or Cuba's? The answer lies in economic systems, the way societies organize production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Let's break it down. An economic system is basically a country's game plan for handling all of the money, the resources it has, and how it facilitates trade. There needs to be three key questions that it answers. What are they making? What to produce? How are you going to produce it? And who gets what is produced? And there are four main types of economic systems, and each one answers these questions very differently. It's why North Korea and South Korea, despite being very close in proximity to each other, have very different economies, and one is prospering while the other one struggles to feed its citizens. The first is probably the most primitive type of economic system. It's called a traditional economy. People rely on customs, history, and community-based production. You only need to make what you need. There's rarely any surplus, and you think of small rural villages where farming, hunting, and trade by barter are the norm. Of course, there are cons to this economy, and a reason why we don't see these types of economies in the modern era today. For one, there's very little innovation. These economies are slow to adapt, and there's very limited growth. The next type of economic system are command economies. In these economies, the government makes all economic decisions and they control the industries, wages, and prices. You might find command economies in the Soviet Union, Cuba, and in North Korea. There's a lack of personal investment, involvement, and property, where all of the productive property in this case is owned by the government, who distributes the resources and chooses what to produce, how to produce, and for whom. Of course, you don't see these economies very much because these economies tend to be based on idealistic principles, and in today's society, they tend to have very low economic growth. There's a lack of personal freedom, they are very inefficient, and there's an extremely high risk of corruption. Then you get to market economies, where you let the people and the businesses make their own choices with minimal government intervention. You might see these economies in the US, Singapore, and New Zealand, where supply and demand drive prices and choices. And this leads to innovation, competition, and wealth creation. Some of the world's largest economies, as you can see here, are based on market economies and principles. While these economies tend to have very high GDP per capita and high economic growth, there are some significant flaws. One is the high inequality that exists in these types of economies. They are very prone to market failures. As you can see in the 2008 financial crisis, banks started lending out risky loans, and without proper regulation and protection, the economy just cratered, and a lot of people lost their jobs, homes, and many banks and businesses went bankrupt. So most economies today, as you can see, are mixed, because you can't have market economies without protections, but you also can't have command economies where people can't have personal property, freedom, or choices. Most economies today converge towards the middle. Whether they're more command or more market really depends on their philosophy and how they want to run the economy. For example, in the UK, Canada, and Sweden, and even in the US to some extent, consumers and businesses can freely choose what to wear, what to buy, and what to sell. There's freedom, but also security. There's a need to encourage business and entrepreneurship, but there's also government regulations to protect consumers and to ensure that the economy is running smoothly. In the past, the economies were more extreme, but most countries today are converging towards the middle. Thanks for watching this video, and if you want to stay tuned for more economic analysis, news, and information, please stay tuned and subscribe to my channel, Biz1.